Adulting Today Academy, Mindy and Tara, episode 2, the epic
Yeah.
episode 2 after episode 1. I'm super stoked to see the comments and the feedback and just appreciation for realness and bringing education that a lot of times is not talked about and is not taught in schools. And I didn't think we'd get anything back. Like just
I know.
first one, but surprisingly, we've had a few questions, and I think the first one we wanted to touch on was healthy boundaries, right?
Yep. We had actually a couple of people asking about that. So that was pretty cool to see. So I think it's something that we need to talk about.
So, I mean, I know what they are. I know what happens when you don't use them. I know what happens when you do use them. I know that sick feeling you can get in your stomach when you need to use them. But I guess we should kind of start out as what really defines, like, what is a healthy boundary? We hear the word boundaries, we hear healthy boundaries, but what is actually a healthy boundary? What do we expect from that? What do you think?
So I think it's a healthy boundary is just having the confidence to be able to understand how you're feeling in a specific situation, right? So um, if something doesn't make you feel right, somebody's asking you a question to do something and you're just not feeling like you have time to do it, having the confidence and um, respect for yourself, right? To be able to say no in those situations. And sometimes when you have those situations, Tara, do you have to always explain the reasons why you're saying no?
No, no is a full statement, and that's really hard to understand. And some people want to infringe on your boundaries because they want more, but that's for their need. And there's no need to make yourself uncomfortable to make somebody else comfortable. There's a balance
Right.
in relationships, but at the same time, it's okay to say no. And it's okay to define what works for you. Because if you don't,
Right.
who's going to do it?
Well, and the funny thing is a lot of times when you are saying no, usually people aren't ready for you to explain the reasons why you're saying no, right? Like some people are already expecting, like, okay, yeah, she said no. That's great. I'm going to move about my day and ask somebody else who might be able to help me or whatever the situation is. So I think sometimes we feel like we have to explain ourselves so that we can make the other person feel more comfortable or make ourselves feel better for saying no. When in fact, it's really just a personal thing. Like, if it's not something that you can do at the moment, it's okay to say no. And it's okay not to have to explain yourself. And I'm not saying no, like as in like talk, just like be very blunt about it, but there's ways that you can go about it without having to explain yourself and the
Yeah,
reasons why you're not.
I'm not ready for that. Let me think about that. That kind of makes me uncomfortable. That's not how I
Right.
saw it. I think there's a lot of ways to say no and not necessarily, and you can give, additional information, but at the end of the day is the healthy boundaries thing. It's like, I don't know, as an adult, you look back and you go, where could I have had that? Where could I have stood my ground? You think about all those times that you may or may not have done things that maybe you didn't want to do. And then after, because you didn't define your boundaries and you didn't speak up for yourself, and you weren't self-aware, you end up doing things that don't resonate with your heart and it doesn't feel good. And that doesn't feel good for me, as I take a deep breath and think about all the things that has happened in life, that, it feels worse to have to sit in your own mud when you did
Yeah.
something that doesn't resonate with you. And it feels better when, even though setting that and establishing that healthy boundary is hard, ultimately you garner more respect for the person you're setting the boundary for. They garner more respect for you, and you garner more respect for yourself. And I mean, we deserve that. And the people that we choose to interact with deserve that too. Like, do you want me to say yes to you just to say yes and feel like crap about it?
No, absolutely not. And you know what's funny is the reason I'm super passionate about instilling this in the younger generation is because I went through that. I did not always set healthy boundaries when I was younger. And like you just said, like looking back, where could I have done that, right? In my younger years, where could I have done that to make myself feel more confident, to have the respect for myself, then to also help others have that same respect for me, right? Like having respect for yourself allows others to have the same respect for you as well. If you're not respecting yourself in certain ways, typically
So,
people don't respect you and they over, what is, they, they tend to go to you for a lot of things when most people would probably say no, right? Because you're the one that's always going to say yes. Yeah.
And then you
So
overburden yourself, you overtask yourself. And what was I just thinking? Oh, we train people how to treat us and what we find is acceptable.
yeah,
And by not putting those healthy boundaries, we muddle the waters. And sometimes we sometimes that happens, right? And we start out wrong, but we can always reflect on, okay, this needs to be different. And then you do those shifts, but you do them with kindness and you don't have to have full explanations, but you just start to slowly set those. And man, when you start to learn how to set them and understand that it's okay and take away the guilt, because guilt is that's for the birds. There's nobody needs
yeah,
guilt. There's nobody beat up on yourself. It's refreshing. And I think
yeah,
that's one of the biggest things for adults that didn't have a lot of those fundamentals as kids and are finding their ways as their parents and whatnot when they start to learn. I think maybe that's where they start to learn is, hey, I need healthy boundaries with my kids. Kids need healthy boundaries with their
with
parents.
their parents.
It's
And
everywhere. It's relationships. That's where it stands out the most to me
yeah,
is just, and it's not just a romantic relationship or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a best friend or a parent. It's with everybody. It's teaching them how to
absolutely.
treat you.
Well, and as parents, are we allowing our children to set those healthy boundaries themselves? Are the teachers and other adults that interact with our kids, are they allowing the children to set those healthy boundaries? I'll give you an example. When my kids were younger, for example, my daughter, she didn't like confrontation. She wanted to take the time and like, look, I don't want to talk about this right now. Right. And so I was always the one that's like, no, we're going to finish this now. Like, I want to know what's going on, what's upsetting you. Right. And so I was not respecting her boundaries of, hey, you know what, mom, this is not the time. I don't want to talk about this right now. I could have just let her go and have her moment that she needed and then come back to it later. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have that conversation if something happened, right? Doesn't mean that I can't have that conversation with her at a later time and allow her to have that healthy boundary, because me allowing her to have that healthy boundary, she's going to respect me when I have those situations where I need to set my own healthy boundary, right? So
Yeah.
it's a form of self-care. It builds confidence. So as parents, if we're helping our children by allowing them to set healthy boundaries, we're helping them build their confidence. We're helping them um, form respect for themselves, and then in turn, they're respecting us more because we're allowing them to do that.
Well, and
So
that
it lowers stress levels too.
absolutely, with the respect begets respect. And that's the thing is respecting somebody's space of when they want to talk about something, because that's the same deal. Like you are telling me you know, you want to know now, you want to fix it for your daughter, you're coming from all the right places, you've got all the motherly love. But maybe she, as her person, that she needs to digest it, she needs to swallow it, she needs to think about it on her own before she's ready to talk about it. And that's with all our
Yeah.
relationships is we all have different personality types, we all have different ways we process. And I think that's a big thing in relationships. Oftentimes people will let a relationship go and just, well, we didn't agree, we didn't this, but no, really, we weren't respecting each other. We weren't respecting each other's boundaries and we weren't coming to the table with our honest, true self. So we potentially lost something good. Maybe it's a, you know,
Yeah.
an unintentional drift from our parents because those boundaries weren't there. And that's the, to me, because I've gone through and I've recreated my relationships with my parents and defined them for what they are, is that's one of the biggest losses. And I see it everywhere. And it doesn't have to be like that. And I think as parents, if we can catch it when they're younger and teach those things, and even when we start to feel it when they're going through those teen years and those really hard times where, you know, there's a lot going on. And especially these days with like COVID and just the extra things that have been put on kids and the change in the world. And that's going to
Yeah.
constantly be happening, that it's that much more important that you don't give up, but then you still don't give up, but stand up for yourself and stand up for own self-awareness and your boundaries. So
Yeah.
is
And
that
so helping them understand that it's important to set those boundaries, including with their parents. Like, what would you suggest? Like, I'm coming to you and I just like, I don't know how to set those boundaries with my parents. Like, they're constantly like, whatever it may be, like, and I tell them, like, for example, my daughter, right? Like, I don't have the space right now. I can't do this right now. I just need some time. Let me go vent on my own. Like, how do you
so
help the children with that
So as a teen,
discussion?
it's a little bit, as a teen or a child, it's a little bit trickier because you do have the
Yeah.
parent are more on the dominant side. but our relationships transition from being young kids to teens where they need to be included in things. And so for a teen coming forward, hey, I need to set some boundaries with my parents. What I would really suggest is that you do it with kindness and you do it with a decent explanation. And you don't have to, because if you're still processing things or you're still setting things, is empathy and understanding. Like, make sure, don't just jump at it. Think about it. Take time to think about the desired result you want to get from this boundary, and think about the words, your tone, your body language, the time of delivery, your personal delivery of how you bring it to your parent of, hey, I understand XYZ and I appreciate it and I respect it. However, this is how it makes me feel. At the end of the day, be honest with your feelings, and nobody can tell you how you feel, but don't exaggerate your feels for extra impact or whatever.
Yeah.
Be true, because nobody wants extra drama in their life, you
Well,
know?
and isn't it true that if you're
Yeah.
actually sharing your feelings with somebody, they're actually going to probably more likely than not listen to you and respect that, but they won't know until you bring it up, right?
Because we make
And so
assumptions.
here, going back to, thanks for sharing that about with the parents and the teens, but what about the most tricky situations I feel in when we're teens in the younger years at school is setting those boundaries with our own peers, right? And there's always that I have to fit in, I have to be in that in crowd, or if I don't say yes to this, then I'm not right. You always have that. And I was there. I don't know about you, but I was there, and I feel like I did not know how to set a healthy boundary back then. And so being able to set that with your friends, the biggest tip that I have is being able to set that with not just your friends, but other peers is number one, we already talked about, you're going to be respecting yourself more. You're going to be building that confidence, but you're also,
You're
that's the word I'm looking for.
modeling it. Absolutely. You're
Yes.
modeling it to those around you. And even though it might be tricky and you might be the first one to do it, so you're leading into it,
Yes.
modeling a behavior, and others that are a little bit on the shyer side or whatever and not happy, not comfortable with setting boundaries are going to be like, damn,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like how
okay.
to,
Yeah, and it's so okay. So
yeah.
it's
Cause
okay to say
they do
no,
go through,
right?
they do go through a lot of stuff in the teen years. Like we've been there, so we get it, right?
Peer pressure is
And
a real
so,
thing. But one of those things I think, or I know, is that for teens, it's that confidence. And we as parents need to make sure that we're giving kids the freedom and their ability to express and be themselves. They might not be us, they're usually not us.
yeah,
But let them know that it's okay to be different and that you don't have to let other people's opinions become your thoughts.
yeah. And I think a lot of times as parents do share that with our kids, right? But then it comes down to, okay, now we're in another situation where we're actually at school. We're with those peers who we're always trying to impress, right? We're trying to fit in. We're trying. So hearing it from parents, and I think this is where our podcast, Tara, comes in really valuable because we can bring it back to, yeah, as parents, like we're talking about this with our kids all the time, and sometimes our kids aren't really registering what we're saying. So coming from somebody else, right, even a another peer, like what we talked about earlier, modeling those behaviors allows them to say, wow, she just pulled that off. How does she pull that off? I wonder if what I do, if I do the same thing, if it would help me with whatever situation I'm in.
You know
So
what I love is that, so that's what our group programs do, right? And
yeah,
because what have we learned? That we can say very similar or the same things as a parent would tell a child or a teen. But when they're learning it in a group atmosphere or a one-on-one,
yeah,
and it's coming from somebody that's not right inside their bubble, they absorb it more and they understand it more. And sometimes, often, because they can be tricky conversations, they feel more open to ask questions and express themselves so they can dive deeper into it. And that seed of
yeah.
self-confidence or healthy boundaries, it just gets planted that much further. And they go, oh, so it's not just in my house bubble that this is okay. This is the world. This is the world we live in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So I think the best thing to do when you're practicing building those healthy boundaries is to just try it out. Like for an easy situation, right? Like, oh, somebody asked you to come over and hang out with them, but you're really tired or you have this big test coming up, right? You feel bad because you know that they really want to spend time with you, but inside you're like, I can't really do that right now because I'm super busy. So I'm going to practice it. Yeah. I'm
You know
going
what
to
you
practice
say?
it slowly.
Here's the fun one. And it's not a lie. And it's still, but it makes it easier. And this is one of the things, because when I was really like, okay, I need to lay boundaries, is it's okay to say, I'd really love to. I have another commitment. That
Yeah.
commitment can be with yourself.
With yourself.
Because you
Correct.
don't feel like going, because it's not something that's for you, whatever the situation will be. But it's okay. That's one of my favorite phrases is, I have another commitment. And who can argue with you? Let me see
Yeah.
your schedule book. What is it? It's another commitment. Thank you.
Well,
And
and if somebody's arguing with you about it, are they really respecting you? Maybe that's not somebody that you need to be hanging out with or doing
I
things.
need a thing here. Red flag. Red flag.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's
Exactly.
that's to be
So
aware
just don't be
of
so
us.
hard on yourself and allow yourself to be able to have the ability to set those boundaries.
Such
It
an
just feels
awesome.
so much better, right? When you're doing it and it goes off just like that. Sometimes it shocks you at like it totally shocks you. Like, whoa, that was that easy. And you're just like, you're able to
Baby
breathe
steps.
now.
Baby steps with changes, and celebrate each time you do it. So now, if people want to reach back out, and we want more questions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If they want support, what's the website? Where are they going to
We're
find
gonna
it?
get adultingtoday.com.
And it should be down there or up there or that
Yep.
way. Yeah.
We'll put it in the we'll drop it. We'll drop it down below.
Drop it like it's hot. Oh, it is
Drop it
hot.
like
It
it's
is
hot.
hot topics. Yeah. So
Drop it like it's hot.
thank you to everybody for joining us today. We will have
Yeah.
lots of more episodes, and it's just real and raw and whatever you want to see for life skills and fundamentals. So